the best fertility biohack that costs nothing.
We talked about it at length. Sleep, like hands down sleep. And if I were to add like a flip to that, like the morning sunlight is really amazing to help regulate your circadian rhythm for the daytime.
If you've been listening to the show, you know I don't believe in one-size-fits-all solutions because your body isn't one-size-fits-all. That's why we created Flow Living to support your hormones with both targeted supplements and the cycle syncing methodology. It's about giving your body what it needs when it needs it so you can feel more balanced, more energized, and more like yourself throughout the month. If you're ready to try it, you can get 25% off with the code podcast25 at flowliving.com. When a woman is told that she can't get pregnant, the assumption is that something is broken. But what if the body isn't failing? What if it's actually making a decision? That is the question at the center of today's guest's work, and the answer changes everything about how we approach fertility. Dr. Aumatma Simmons is a double board-certified naturopathic endocrinologist who has spent nearly 20 years specializing in fertility. She is the physician other physicians come to when they need to understand hormones and conception at a deeper level. And she has helped hundreds of couples conceive naturally after being told there was nothing left to try. Her specialty are the cases that fall through the cracks. Unexplained infertility and recurrent pregnancy loss. In this episode, we're getting into what biohacking fertility actually means when it's built around female biology, why so many women are unknowingly working against their own cycle, and what it looks like to create the internal conditions your body needs to be ready to conceive. Welcome, Dr. Aumatma. How are you?
I'm so well. Thank you so much for having me, Elisa.
I
This is
am
like
thrilled
such an
to have
honor.
you. You know, I always invite my dear, I'm so lucky that I have this show now because I get to have all my dear friends and colleagues come on and have the same conversations we are always having at conferences and when we hang out, except now we get to have it on my podcast. So, and everybody
Yeah.
gets to listen and learn from everyone who I think is just so brilliant. And I'm really excited to have you here to talk about all the things because you bring such a needed perspective to a fertility conversation that I think got a lot of stress out and we can do better. So let's start with your description of infertility as a symptom and not a diagnosis, because that's really a different framing from almost an encounter it in a clinical setting. What's shifted for you when you started seeing it that way? And what does it open up for a woman who's been told, you know, she just can't get pregnant?
Yeah. When I first started in this field, the word infertility was just so common. And for me, it's always, I take a step back and I'm like, what questions do we need to be asking in this situation? So for infertility, I feel like infertility and a diagnosis, and whether it's PMOS or endometriosis or PMDD, whatever, right? Like the host of diagnoses or labels, as I like to call them, that we put onto a certain presentation of things that are happening in the body. Whereas fertility is more of a state of our body. And it's the state of how so many things are interacting with each other. And at the core of it are giving the sign of, let's get pregnant because it's safe, or let's shut it down because we're in survival mode. And
I think that's really important because a lot of women don't appreciate that you don't need your libido, your fertility, or your menstrual cycle to survive. Those are, from a biological perspective, those are nice to haves, not need to haves, right?
Right.
From a survival perspective, you just got to keep the lights on in your brain and the blood pumping in your heart. That's survival, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I love that because it really opens up a whole different conversation when it comes to fertility of like, how do we get the body into a lot of abundance so that you get to have the experience of all those nice to haves? It's so different, so refreshing.
Yeah, exactly. And I think like in the fertility space, when we don't label it anything and we just say, oh, this is not happening, let's figure out why this result that you really, really want is what's blocking it, what's in the way. And if we ask those questions, we're going to get very different answers from the default, oh, you're infertile, it's your age, and it's going to be really hard for you to get pregnant, so you should just do IVF.
I also think that's a really important thing. That's why I wanted to have you on the show, because everything is a gem. But like, why that's so important to underscore is that experience that you just described, that's like part of a continuum of conditioning that we receive as women, right? Like, oh, you're going to get a period, but it's going to be miserable. And that's because you're cursed as a woman, and that's what you should expect. And then, oh, you're infertile and there's nothing you can do. And so you, like you just said, you kind of get that sort of story. And then it'll be later on, oh, you're perimenopausal, so it's going to be miserable. And yeah, that's what it is. And oh, you're postmenopausal and your sex drive is going to evaporate and your vagina is going to dry out. And that's the best you can do. And it's like, that's who wants to subscribe to that narrative? Not me. I have unsubscribed from that conversation for a long time. And I'm inviting all of you listening to jettison that whole set of storytelling mythology. And I love that you highlight that from a fertility perspective, but let's not forget that it's like, why are women even believing it in the first place? It's like, I think it starts at puberty. Where it's like, we're just telling them like, welcome to the female party. It's going to be bad. How awful is that? Just
Yeah. And like, why? Yeah, I'm with you. I don't understand this message that we give to women throughout our entire life phases. It's never great.
It's a negative narrative, and it's mythological because it is not grounded in science. And I love that we can say that now much more definitively because of all this new research that's coming out. So, all right, let's keep going, because obviously we talk about that. We get along on all sorts of levels with that. When a woman's body isn't conceiving, what's the biological logic behind why that is failing? What is happening?
Well, so I think of most not conception as subfertility. It's like, it could probably happen, but there's a few things that are just not clicked into place. And as I was saying earlier, like, we really have this spectrum between survival and safety, and both of those don't really coexist together. And as you so eloquently pointed out, like, you don't need any of your reproductive features to survive. That is like a legacy thing that your body's like, I don't really care. I want to make sure that I live, right? And that's super important. It's like, yes, your body is focused on how to help you survive at its best. Now, if that signal is constantly in survival mode, then a lot of things start to break down. And all of those things, that it could be everything from our adrenal function or dysfunction to blood sugar dysregulation to gut health to thyroid health, all of those things, even a notch or two lower than optimal, are going to be enough together to create a scenario where the body's like, well, I'm too much in survival right now. So safety, reproduction, gonna need to turn that off. I need to conserve my resources so that I can live.
I think, again, just underscoring that there's a many layered set of reasons why that may not have happened, more than just it must have been genetic or progesterone deficiency. It's so refreshing, because what it means is there are many levers to then start to manipulate to get an outcome of pregnancy beyond just genetic material and progesterone levels. That doesn't leave you with a lot of things to work with, but really there's so many other factors at play, as you're just saying. And if you suspect that those things are going on, there's so much that you can do. So to that point, I want to kind of switch just for a minute into like this biohacking conversation, because I want your take, obviously, on biohacking fertility. And we're going to talk about, how you go about that. We're going to talk about biohacks that really work for fertility. We're going to talk about things that are biohacks that women should not be doing. But let's just start with what typically gets called biohacking is really designed around male biology. What does it mean for you to be biohacking as a woman, and why does that distinction matter so much when it comes to fertility?
Well, so biohacking, as designed for men, is designed for the 24-hour clock and the circadian rhythm. And the circadian rhythm is vital for women's health. But we have this added bonus of the infradian rhythm. And I think that's really where so many women leave our superpowers to chance or to will or to yeah, it's just not, that's not my cup of tea, or it's not what I want to be doing. And if we are able to really understand what's happening with our hormones throughout our life cycle, from puberty to our 20s, 30s, and beyond, then we really are able to access the extra energy, vitality, supercharge. I just think of it as a super sexy, oh, I'm so grateful that I have this extra, right? And biohacking from the female perspective is that. It's yes, you can do the things that are going to support the circadian rhythm. And you have to take it to the next level and support the infradian rhythm. And then all of a sudden you step into this world whoa, things are so much easier and it's clearer. And even when we were talking about scheduling the podcast a week later, and I was like, no, we got to do it this week, right? I'm not doing this on my period. That's just not going to happen. So really being in tune and in rhythm can really support every aspect of our life, fertility and otherwise, because in that safety mode, it is our greatest abundance. It's our greatest vitality. It's our energy. It's our brain function, nervous system regulation. All of that is happening and available to us when we are in safety mode.
I love that. Obviously, I wrote extensively about this in my second book, In the Flow. It's actually the first book to talk about the infradian rhythm and cycle syncing. That method, thank you. That method is really about protecting progesterone production, which, when we think about it from a fertility perspective, that's one of the keys. But it also gives you maximum micronutrient exposure, which increases that sense of abundance. It regulates, your fitness intensity, so you're not creating excessive amounts of stress. So it's a really elegant system to align with these different metabolic realities and cortisol realities and hormonal realities, so that you're supporting them versus straining them and stressing them all the time. And that has a cumulative effect on preserving all of those factors that you're talking about when it comes to fertility. So I love that you are a fertility specialist who sees the value in cycle syncing, because, we know from a clinical trial that I ran that it has an incredibly successful efficacy rate around reducing PMS. But obviously the same things that reduce PMS, right, which is a luteal phase defect for the most part, improve fertility as well. And I think it's really important that women understand that this is all connected. And I love that you're underscoring that for us today. When you work with someone who wants to take a biohacking approach to their fertility, where do you actually start? What does assessment or testing look like before you start making recommendations?
I think it's really great to not just go out and stack all the supplements that TikTok tells you to stack, right?
Thank you.
Figure out.
You're right here, people.
It's going nuts on
It's too
TikTok.
much. It's too much.
Instagram is even too much.
Yeah.
It is really you have to turn all of that off and figure out what is it that is going to move the needle for you. So if we're thinking about it in the context of fertility, my first question is, okay, if you're not getting pregnant, what's in the way? What is it that's making it harder for you to get pregnant and or stay pregnant, right? A lot of people are like, well, I don't have a problem getting pregnant. I'm like,
That's
yeah,
only
staying
half
pregnant
that's
is a
half the
very
thing, right?
similar. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you're talking about like a self-assessment here, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
then
Yeah.
which, sort of look like, are there sort of lifestyle factors, things that you're doing, like not getting sleep, or I don't know, eating lots of ultra processed foods, or those,
Yeah.
so kind of auditing,
Yeah.
which I think is a really important conversation to have, because I think so many women just go right away to like, what's my AMH level and that. But what type of testing do you like to do after that audit phase before you start creating a protocol for someone? Are there specific
Yeah.
tests that you like that go beyond just the AMH
Yeah.
number? We'll talk about AMH in a second, but what's the whole picture
Totally.
that you like to do?
Totally. So that assessment, the one that I'm talking about is there's an assessment that I've spent literally the last 3 years trying to create. And it's like how I would talk to a patient sitting in front of me. What are the questions that I want to know in kind of the algorithm that I'm going through in my head to
Mm-hmm.
say, does this person have an inflammatory issue? Is it a blood sugar dysregulation? Is it adrenals? Is it thyroid? I'm going through like 15 different things to get a general sense of what are their possible root causes so that I don't have to run 500 tests, right? Because you can go to a functional doc and they're like, oh, here's $10,000 worth of testing right out of the gate. And you're like, really? Do I need all of this? All of it?
Oh, that's so good, Aumatma, because, that's a thing that people really feel like is like the thing to do. Just like they think buying a ton of supplements is the thing to do. They think getting 100 different blood tests is like the
Yeah.
thing to do. But I really like what you're saying here is actually, let's try to identify which of these pathways, inflammatory, immune, toxic burden, metabolic, like which of these pathways is in most likely the leading disruptor to your fertility, and then work some testing back from there so that you're not overwhelmed and also spending inordinate amounts of money that, frankly, and that's the other thing about wellness that's so frustrating for so many of us as female consumers, is it's like, well, everybody's saying you have to do everything and everything
Mhm.
has to be out of pocket. And that is unfair and also unnecessary, which is what you're pointing out now. And I just love that you're saying that, because even when it comes to fertility, which is a very emotional subject,
Yeah.
more data isn't always going to get you to the
Mhm.
right pathway. Like sometimes you
Yeah.
have to actually just think through the process a
Yeah.
bit more. So
Yeah. Yeah,
brilliant.
exactly. And like I've talked to so many couples over my career, probably like 7,000 is my estimate.
Mm.
And every time they're like, "Oh, give me all the testing. Give me all the testing." And I'll sit with them for an hour and I'm like, "Okay, these are the 3 tests that I think you really need." And they're like, "That's it? That's all you got?" I'm like, "I can give you more. There is a lot more that we can do, but why don't we start with these so that we conserve your resources for what you're going to actually need to put into play?" And they're like, "Oh,
Love
yeah,
that.
that's smart." So basically, this app, this little algorithm thing just does it for me instead of you needing to talk to me now.
I love that.
So
We'll put that in the show notes
yeah,
for
yeah,
sure. That's
yeah.
so cool that you built that. Femtech is it's an awesome time for femtech. It's for women because of femtech. Okay.
Yes.
What are
It,
biohacks that you come back to again and again? The
mhm.
ones that have the most evidence behind them for egg quality, hormonal support, and overall fertility. And, so I want to know, like, what are the ones that you love? And are there any that are genuinely underrated that women aren't hearing about?
I think the biggest one is sleep. And I think like people are I can just feel all of the women listening, like rolling their eyes to the
Grumble,
back of their
grumble. Oh,
head.
I can't get any sleep anyway. I have too much to do.
You're right.
No, but
But sleep is the needle mover
yes.
in so many people.
You actually
And
wrote a newsletter that I thought was super special when it came to sleep, because, we get groany about sleeping more because it's kind of a knee-jerk reaction that we have from
Mhm.
when we were like 4 and our parents were sending us to bed, and we somehow have never outgrown that. I mean, I still feel that way. So
I don't
I think
wanna
I don't
sleep.
want to go to bed. We all have that problem. Let's just admit it. But
Yeah.
what I loved is that you broke down some of the work that you were doing with couples around using sleep trackers, any device that will track sleep, if it's a ring
Mhm.
or a watch, it doesn't matter. But tying or connecting the dots between length of deep sleep cycles and amount of deep sleep cycles,
Mhm.
and tying that to improvements in ovulation and progesterone production in under 3 menstrual cycles. That's
Yeah.
enormous and super important. So when we're talking about sleep, we're not just saying sleep is good for you, so get more sleep. We're saying if you want to become more fertile, which equates, let's say, mechanically to ovulating and making more progesterone,
Mhm.
this is a lever. So explain it.
Yeah. So essentially, progesterone is the result of egg quality, right? So there's a direct connection to how fertile you are to track your progesterone levels.
Mm-hmm.
So what we found is that when people are optimizing their sleep, it means sleep with the dark room, cut off the blue light at least 2 hours before bed. Uh,
Or wear your blue light blocking. Listen, I like my little
or
spicy novels at night, so I wear my blue light blocking glasses with my Kindle on my dark mode. But
Yeah.
but you have to mitigate it to some extent, and then no matter
Mhm.
what, at 10 o'clock you have to stop. But keep going.
So you're doing the things that are going to increase the quality of sleep. It's not always the number of hours in bed. It's literally like, yes, 6 to 8, sometimes 9 hours, depending on your body type. But that is high quality sleep. And I love sleep trackers because now we can understand physiologically, well, what does that mean? And like you said, it's essentially how long are you spending in deep sleep? How many cycles do you go through? And if we can understand it on that level, then we can say, oh, well, let's figure out what you did before you went to bed, like you ate 3 cookies. That is going to dysregulate your blood sugar, which
Mm-hmm.
is then going to keep you in light sleep mode. The long-term effect of that is now you have a crappy cycle the next month.
And when she says crappy cycle, what she means is poor ovulatory response and not enough of that corpus luteum
Yep.
time to make progesterone. And that's suboptimal fertility right there, just from your
Oh,
sleep.
yep. And you probably are going to have more period pain the next month.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to have more inflammation happening.
Mm-hmm.
And it has, and I don't want to make it like, oh, one cookie is going to ruin it all. But if this is a pattern,
Right.
then more likely than not, it's having a significant effect on your hormones, especially in the luteal phase,
Mm-hmm.
but also in the follicular phase. The follicular phase is where you're making follicles. So if you don't get enough rest, rejuvenate, reproduce signals, then sorry, we're not making great follicles this month. And that's going to have a result on the progesterone that's made in the luteal phase and whether or not you have a full 14-day luteal phase and on and on. And that cycle just keeps repeating. So there is a study that came out of Korea maybe 3 or 4 years ago. That was basically they tracked 40 women and they tracked their cycle for 3 months. And the only change that they were allowed to make to their day to day is go to bed at the same time, wake up at the same time. I don't remember if they timed it to 10 o'clock or not, but that would be the ideal. And what they found is that the consistency. So going from I like to sleep in on the weekends.
Yeah,
I don't know
that
about
sort of
you, but
random sleep schedule is
yes.
no good.
No,
No
it
good.
is
Yeah.
it's like the one thing that and everyone will push back on it. But the weekend is my time to catch up. Well, you wouldn't have to catch up if you weren't
Right.
depleted to begin with.
But that study
So,
showed that when they made this change,
yeah, they made this change and their cycles improved, less PMS, better luteal phase response, better progesterone. So it is a direct, like sleep is just, if you did one thing after listening to this episode, that's it.
Okay, since we're talking about sleep, then I want to add a couple things because I think people don't understand how to set themselves up for sleep success.
Mhm.
And I know
Mhm.
you really break this down for your patients, so I'm going to let you give that guidance. But I think a fun fact that women don't know that they should know is that the ovaries have a hardwired recovery phase that is circadian in timing. And it doesn't change. It doesn't change based on when you decide to go to sleep. It only happens from 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. That is biologically hardwired. That is the ovarian rejuvenation window. And if you're not asleep during those 4 hours, you miss it. And so therefore you have this cumulative potential inflammaging of the ovary that, like you said, if I asked you to pick one lever, right, for fertility, and you picked sleep. So we're in it to win it now. So if we're going to be talking about sleep, like let's make sure we are asleep,
Yes.
at 10, and that should be our new normal for us as a standard biohack for women. Making sure that actually, but set us up for success. How long before 10 p.m., when should our last meal be? What should we do, from setting up the room? How do we optimize the sleep so that we get that deep sleep phase and multiple of them?
So what I've noticed is about 3 to 4 hours before bedtime is your cutoff for your meal. So don't eat super close to your bedtime. Cut it off early. Ideally, some complex unprocessed carbohydrates at bedtime, as long as you can regulate your blood sugar well, are going to actually support your sleep.
So that's like a sweet potato, or if you're more sugar sensitive, or if you're older, like over 35, you may need to do more things like, you can get complex carbohydrates from string beans and snap peas and zucchini. It doesn't have to actually be a traditional carbohydrate to get carbohydrates in, right?
Yes, I'm not talking about bread at all.
We're definitely not talking about bread before bed. No bread before bed.
That is going to make you crash for sure.
Yes.
So we're talking about complex unprocessed carbs. Some of the other ones are like, if you're still wanting to do more protein, you can get beans, lentil soup at night. Oh, so good. So we're opting for things that are unprocessed in their whole form and incorporating a little bit of that at bedtime.
Yep. Okay, and 3 or 4 hours
at dinner time.
At dinner time, yeah, and backing it up a bit, so if you want to be snoozing by 10, that means like lips closed by 7 at the latest. Not like I'm sitting down to eat at 7. It's like that was your last swallow, and now dinner's done.
I don't enforce this that much, but like somewhere in there,
people like a structure. we need some, listen, in a world where we have to make so many decisions, right? Like, we just tell me what to do. Like, what is the routine that I need to optimize? But what's nice about this too is it's not just optimizing from a fertility perspective, but this is a habit that if you get into this habit in your 30s, right, to preserve and enhance your fertility, this will serve you in perimenopause and postmenopause, because we know that having bread before bed, right? If we're going to make that a thing, if you're having those simple carbohydrates before bed, that's going to increase your risk, increase the experience of hot flashes and night sweats, because your body is trying to save you from all that elevated blood sugar by sweating it out while you're sleeping. And so this is a good thing to know if you're listening, because you're listening from a fertility perspective, but bookmark this habit of the eating properly before bedtime, because it's a longitudinal practice that takes care of your ovarian function for life and forever. So, okay. So we've 3 to 4 hours before bed, no more food. complex carbohydrates. Now what?
Okay. And then I would say something to regulate your nervous system. So I really like meditation. That's my go-to sometimes or often.
I'm terrible at meditating. I have tried it. I do it. I don't enjoy it the way that I feel like I should.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I can sometimes I like guided visualization before bed. That can be nice. And I'm on my phone, which I don't like. So I've been experimenting with, and I'm sure you have some thoughts on this too, is using a vagus nerve stimulator to get me out of, to get me more into a better nervous system state so that I can be relaxed. And it's nice. It's a little vibrating device. You can put it on your chest. It's comforting.
And there's tools like that work really well. There's a community that I'm part of that does nervous system regulation in partnership. So you hop on the phone with a totally random person. This community is huge. Totally random person. You may not know them, whatever. Like, hey, let's go. And you set a timer for 10 minutes and you guys like just sit with presence with each other. And I literally did that just before this podcast. So it is one of my favorite ways to hit the reset button. So I do that sometimes. Dr. Joe Dispenza's meditations have really helped me enjoy them again because I was a meditator when I was young, and then I stopped at some point. All while I was getting very dysregulated. I'm too busy to.
So I'm getting the loving, gentle nudge from my friend and colleague that I should really find a way to start meditating more. Good, we're all here to learn and to do better. So thank you for looking out. I'm gonna find a way to add it in. But if you struggle like me, to do this part 2 of what Dr. Aumatma is recommending, so it's like eating in the right sequence, the right timing before bed, but also getting into nervous system regulation. If you can't make the jump to meditation, try a hot shower, try a hot bath, try a vagus nerve stimulator. If you want to try one of those, try cuddling with your partner. That helps. Hugging is a nervous system regulator too. So you can find lots of workarounds. Okay, so we've done step 1 and step 2. What's next in the sleep hygiene protocol?
Then by 2 hours before, we have turned off our devices.
Or we're wearing
wearing blue light blocker glasses.
Okay. And the good ones, the ones that are orange, not the ones that are cute for your daytime Zoom calls. That does nothing really. Anyway, you get the real deal ones. Okay. Okay, great. Yeah. And what else?
So, and then you're relaxing, you're rejuvenating, you're doing something that fills your cup, right? If we think about, we've given all day long to somebody else. And this is your time to reboot and fill your own cup. I will encourage, especially when couples are on the fertility journey, they're so focused on how do we make a baby that they forget that connection is at the foundation of that. So if I can get them to be like 15 minutes together, just like eye gaze for maybe 5 minutes, have a peaceful conversation, hug, like a long hug, and then you're getting ready to like wind down and get into bed.
I mean, also, because you do talk about this in your work, the room has to be set to 68 degrees for you, and it has to be completely dark. So that means no night lights peeking from the bathroom. Don't leave the TV on, blackout curtains, like dark. Because that's how you're going to make melatonin.
Yeah. And even to the point of all the little LED lights that are on
buy
devices.
Stickers, buy the blackout stickers,
clear it out.
All of it.
And then the other thing is not forgetting about EMFs. So EMFs, especially in and around the bed, is really important to test because we had a couple who just got pregnant. Fingers crossed. They've had 7 pregnancy losses. So when they came to us, we we were like assessing all of their things, and she's wired all the time. She's a school teacher. And and then they moved, and they were like, oh my God, we can't sleep at all. Like, we had fixed this and now we can't sleep again.
Oof.
And I'm like going through the checklist, and they're still doing all of the practices that we gave them, but it's not working anymore. And I was like, I'm sorry to break it to you, but you need this EMF device. Like, let's figure out if you have EMFs. And her side of the bed was off the charts. And she's like, I don't have anything plugged in. I don't know what to do. And they moved into this apartment building. So now this building has EMFs all around them, even though they are okay with what they have in their bedroom.
Yeah,
So
it's true that even in hotel rooms are the worst. Actually, they're so wired. All the walls are, hiding so much wiring and Wi-Fi, and it's really challenging. I find that it's noticeably easier to fall asleep when I'm in my childhood home, which I don't get to do very often, but I would notice that when I was living in Manhattan and I would come and visit my parents. And I asked my dad once, my dad's an engineer, and I said, Dad, why could that be? And he said, oh, because when I built the house, when he was remodeling it, he was doing things with concrete. And so he put in wire, like, think of it like a chicken coop wire, like, so lots of crosshatch wire. So he inadvertently made Faraday cage, and there's just no possibility of EMFs entering my childhood home. And it is night and day. Just even being in the house during the day, nervous system is very different than anywhere else. And so, I mean, I wonder in the future if there's a way to think about building more fertile optimized homes, fertility optimized homes, hormone optimized homes that factor in how can we use construction to protect against these things, because it's everywhere and it's really challenging when that's something that you have to factor in. But in the meantime, if you don't happen to have a Faraday cage built into your house, which nobody does, there obviously you can unplug things, you can buy devices that help shield. There's a lot that you can do. And the point isn't to bring it up to make it like, oh my God, one more thing I have to worry about, but just to know that it's a lever that you might need to consider that isn't being talked about really in the fertility conversation outside of your practice, which is why I wanted to have you on to just share some things that people likely haven't heard of before, because especially when you're dealing with this idiopathic infertility diagnosis, like everything looks good on paper, all my levels are okay, I don't understand what's going on. I mean, you're really able to crack these cases because you're willing to, as a physician, look at things that are unusual, and unfortunately, there's correlation. Okay, so obviously now we're all going to be sleeping better. It's good. It's good for you whether you're going to try to get pregnant or you're just wanting to be a healthy woman. Let's just talk about what are some of the things that, because there's, as you mentioned before, there's so many things happening on social media. A lot of things are being passed off as healthy, like fasting and HIIT workouts and keto and and these
carnivore.
Carnivore. These can actually work against fertility. Which ones do you see causing the most harm in women who are really trying to do everything that they can to be healthy and boost their fertility?
I think women should never eliminate complex carbohydrates. Never.
Hallelujah.
Like, that's it. That the dietary changes to me are getting worse and worse and worse. I do not understand. Where's the research on this? But if you are a cycling female, which is literally like kind of all I know about, I don't do perimenopause and menopause. So if in menopause somehow being carnivore helps, great, have at it. Don't know about that. But for fertility, for a cycling female, I'm sorry to break it to you, you cannot sustain without complex carbohydrates.
And let me tell you why. Because another little known fact, the ovary is full of receptor sites for insulin. right? So it
Hmm.
means it's very sensitive to your blood sugar levels. And if you eliminate this whole food group, you're going to have dysregulated blood sugar, which is going to lead to dysregulated insulin, and that is going to negatively impact your ability to ovulate and
Hmm.
manufacture hormones.
And progesterone, especially.
Especially. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so good. We've explained that. Great. I mean,
That was
you and I are very aligned. So I'm just gonna add in. I think that's right. That's probably the one that's causing the most harm. But I do think that the research shows that extensive intermittent fasting during
mhm.
the morning is very problematic. So if you do want
Yeah.
to fast, I know you and I both agree, like overnight golden fast is good, but eat breakfast. And then
Mhm.
all this extreme working out creates too much stress on the ovary,
Mhm.
and like you said earlier, sends signals that there's a lack of resources or that there isn't safety, and so we have to find a more moderate approach, which is why I know you really love recommending women cycle syncing their workouts to prevent that kind of extreme exposure too. So
Absolutely.
that's really good.
You should be getting protein within 30 minutes of waking up. So if you wake up at 6 o'clock, your breakfast cannot be at 9 o'clock.
And people always ask me about why they're like, but then, and then, because then I also have to eat every 3 or 4 hours after that. They're like, but then does my lunch have to be at like 11:30? I'm like, yeah, let's stop calling it dinner. That's part of the problem. Let's just call it meal 1, meal 2, meal 3, and meal 4. Because if you're awake for about, if your eating window is about 12 hours, right? And depending on your energy expenditure, right? If you're doing a strength training and cardio that day, you may need to eat every 3 or 4 hours. Obviously, you want to front load your carbohydrates earlier in the day when you're more naturally insulin sensitive, and you want to have, like you said, more gentle, complex carbohydrates and lighter amounts of them later in the day when you're more naturally insulin resistant. But you 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 have to eat. And so if you're getting tripped up on, well, I have to then wait until noon or 1 o'clock to eat lunch, don't. Just eat earlier. And then your meal
Eat when
3
you're
is like,
hungry.
yeah, then meal 3 is 3 o'clock. And then your last meal is like a small little snack at 6:30. And then you can go to sleep, right? It's changing how we think about it from uh, aligning our behavior with what is societally mealtime to creating a routine that is tailored to your life,
Your
right?
body.
And
Yeah.
nourishing it. That's why I don't call it breakfast, lunch, and dinner at all. I'm like, okay, it's my feeding time. What am I having now? What's needed for this meal time, right? Meal 1, 2, 3, whatever it is, right? Like, and
Yeah,
today,
you're amazing about
well,
that.
I know. Aumatma and I see each other at conferences, so I bring my food everywhere. But everybody knows that about me. I'm like,
Yeah.
I bring out like a whole bag. I'm like, ta-da! Here's my food for the day. Because I
So good.
cannot. I also have a PMOS epigenetic backstory, so I have to be very sensitive about managing my blood sugar. And I
Mhm.
cannot leave it to chance. Like, oh, I'll just wing it at a conference because they never have anything that women should be eating, even at women's conferences. It drives me nuts. So I bring all my own food, but I think that fueling ourselves properly is really, really important. If you've ever wanted to ask me your own hormone questions, the Ovary Club Insiders is where you can do that. You'll get access to private podcast episodes where I answer real member questions with clear, science-backed guidance you can actually use. Join us at alisavidi.com/insiders. Okay.
So
I love when you talk about this. This is a really fascinating story I've heard you talk about before. So I want you to share it with us on the pod here. Most women have heard that, fertility magically drops at 35. Where does
my.
that actually come from? And what does the evidence say about what truly shapes fertility as women age?
Yeah. So this is like
Prepare to have your
a can
minds
of worms.
blown, people.
Can of
You
worms.
can't make this up, is what I mean. When I first heard this, my jaw hit the floor. Go ahead.
So uh, I had the same question. It's like, why do we have this belief system? And a book that I had on my shelf, Women's Bodies, Women's Wisdom, I opened it to the fertility chapter. mind blown by Dr. Northrup talking about women that were getting pregnant in their 60s in other parts of the world. So, like, pause. I do not want to have children when I'm 60.
Fair.
There's no way. But it expanded my mind to, oh, well, that's a different way to think about what's possible as a woman. So contrast that with me being in my early 30s and being like freaked out that I was never going to have a child because I was married to this man that I did not want to have children with. My body was like, absolutely not. That's not happening. And I was like, oh, that means going through a divorce, then meeting someone new, finding the right person, and maybe eventually getting married and then having a kid. So in my head, this timeline was like at least 10 years. And I was like, according to what I learned, that's never going to happen.
Yeah.
Like,
so you were really motivated to like figure out, and you dug through so much research, and then you stumbled upon this fact. Tell us, because the anticipation is killing me on everybody's behalf. We need to know where this origin story came from.
So I could not find any studies that were quoting that even made remote sense of why we think fertility declines at 35. And this is a foundational belief of everything fertility. So for me, I was like, I have to know where this comes from. It traces back all the way to the 1800s in France. Not science, but churches have documentation that women were not coming to get their children baptized after the age of 35.
Okay, pause. Let's just breathe, because
yes. Tell me how.
I mean, like we said earlier in the episode, that there's a whole lot of mythology that is linked to the narratives about our experiences of our bodies that is not based in science or research. Mm-hmm. And I had never heard this before. And I am just so happy to be hearing about yet another piece of the story that doesn't have any basis. I mean, obviously there's a basis that the ovary ages, but it's not time-bound by chronology. Mm-hmm. It's more driven by biological inflammaging, which we'll get to, but just so it's coming from these church records of the 1800s.
The 1800s.
About baptism.
We surely live longer than we did in the 1800s.
Right.
So I went and looked up what is life expectancy in the 1800s in France. And average life expectancy for a female was 32.6, 32.7, something like that. And I was like, okay, what was killing off women so early in their lives? Drumroll, please. It was childbirth. Literally, they were trying to have babies till the moment that they passed away.
Thank God for modern medicine and sanitation and C-sections.
We do not have that. We don't die as often.
Yes.
Women are still dying in childbirth.
Yes.
But we're not dying at 32.7 on average. So
they just made some sort of random correlation that your max fertility was 35 based on life expectancy and church records in the 1800s.
Yeah. Yeah. So since
crazy.
Then, there has been very small scale studies since then that have tested out this theory. We should really call it what it is. It's a theory. And what they have found, both of these are out of like Europe, Switzerland, Sweden, something like that. So countries that are similar to the US. And what they have found is the best study that I've seen on this was maybe 120 women. So very small, very, very small.
Yep.
But what they found was between the ages of 25 and 29 versus 35 and 39, there was a 3% decline in fertility rates.
3%?
Yeah.
That is practically
3%.
Statistically insignificant. I mean, from a practical, that's very, very small. So what we're saying is age is not a real factor the way that we've been conditioned to believe it is.
Yeah. And I think that like what I tell women that I talk to is like age is a factor only because you have lived in your body 10 years more if you're in your 40s trying to have a child.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have lived the way that the average American lives with
In a
stress,
pro-inflammatory processed,
alcohol,
alcohol,
processed
not
food,
sleeping.
just yes, all of the things
Yeah.
that we're talking about that are stacking against you, then 10 more years in that body is going to take a toll on your fertility.
Well, what you're talking about now is biological aging rate versus
Mhm.
chronological aging
Yep.
rate. And that I do think is a missing piece of the conversation when it comes to fertility. I mean,
Mhm.
I had my second at 44, had my first at 37, and my second at 44. And I remember I wanted to see, if this was going to be possible. And I went and got my labs done and my endometrium lining thickness checked and everything at different phases of the cycle. And I mean, the physician that I had doing all this, she's like, I just don't understand how you have the biomarkers and the lab results of somebody
Yeah.
who is a decade younger than you from a fertility
Yeah.
perspective. And I was like, well,
Yeah.
I do understand where that comes from because I was forced to make a lot of these dietary and
Right.
lifestyle changes at 20 because of my PCOS, if you haven't heard of
Yeah.
the name change yet. Um, and I had been doing that not perfectly, but pretty consistently for 2 decades leading up to it. And that's
Yeah.
the difference in the
And
biological aging process versus chronological aging.
absolutely. And that had guaranteed slowed down the aging of your ovaries, regardless of how many birthdays you had had since that point.
For sure.
So,
And then we had the little baby, which was really nice.
yeah. Yeah.
I-
And what's cool is that there are some companies that are popping up that are able to measure ovarian age. I don't think it's super accurate yet, but they're measuring what they call ovarian age, and they're essentially looking for methylation markers on the ovaries.
Because
And
that's what's being tracked when we look at just biological age in
Mhm,
general.
mhm.
So
Yeah,
that's really,
yeah.
really, really cool.
And it's not hopeless. Like you can reverse it. So when
In fact,
one of my colleagues,
I had Dr. Karen Fitzgerald on an earlier episode talking
yeah,
about her groundbreaking research around reversing or reducing biological age through dietary and lifestyle levers only, looking at these methylation pathways. And so, yes, it is absolutely true that there's published research that you
yeah.
can, in fact, reduce your biological age despite the number of birthdays you've had, as you put
Yeah.
it. I want to switch into pregnancy loss because you work with a lot of unexplained infertility and recurrent pregnancy loss. Cases where a woman has been told everything looks fine on paper. What are things that standard testing consistently misses, and what does your process of investigation look like?
I think there's quite a lot of things that the conventional testing misses. So first, someone that has experienced a loss, they're going to have to go through 3 of them before Western medicine offers any kind of testing to them.
That is
And
so emotionally traumatizing, and that should be improved as a clinical
I feel
standard.
like that should be malpractice. Like, what? You're going to make a woman go through 3 losses before there's any kind of workup? Like, even basic stuff, like, can you test me for something? No. So that to me is a big frustration. But even after they have done their battery of tests, they're looking for things like antiphospholipid syndrome, immune markers. It's comprehensive and still missing the mark on several things.
What would you like to see?
I think with that, vital things that are missing are the thyroid, like a more complete assessment of the thyroid, including what I see most often is autoimmune component to the thyroid. So having antibodies that are dysregulated and often off the charts. I've seen them in the thousands at times. And I'm like, well, you can't really function if your brakes are going harder than any signal in your body. Your body's like, slow down, stop. And you're still driving through it. It's not going to go well. So autoimmune gut inflammation, which shows up in several ways. Food sensitivities being part of that, and also gut microbiome, vaginal microbiome. We can kind of group it all together. So that level of testing. And then the third is really the male partner. So there are multiple factors on the male side that are contributing to recurrent loss in the female. And we are starting to learn why so late. I don't know, but there's a lot
Gender
of research.
bias. I'm gonna just say it out loud.
So the factors on the male side are DNA fragmentation, which almost never gets tested because so many reproductive endocrinologists don't believe in it. I'm like, how do you not believe in science? I don't understand. So I've talked to a lot of reproductive endocrinologists and they're like, yeah, that's just not a necessity. And I'm like, but that's an indicator of what's happening with the sperm. If you have messed up DNA, it's not going to make a healthy human. So
yeah,
to me, that makes
I
perfect
think
sense.
it's really special that you are trying to bring that forward as a standard of care, because oftentimes, and I've seen this in my practice, women feel like it's their fault. Something's wrong with them and them alone. And, it does take those two genetic components, the egg and the sperm, for that for an embryo to be formed. And if there are problems on the side of the sperm, you can be fully optimized on the female side. And if you're not looking at the male side of the picture, you're wasting precious time. And so I do think it's important that you're bringing that forward as like a new standard, like an update to the clinical process. That's really helpful.
Yeah.
So, you're listening and you've been dealing with recurring losses, this is something that you could ask for. Say, like, we've tried everything else. And if you get pushback, you can say, like, well, we looked at everything else and everything else is okay. So I'd really like to see if this is an issue, because if it is, then that's a new pathway we could go down. There's IVF procedures where you can do sperm selection, for example, and then embryo testing. If this becomes something that shows up,
Yeah. So DNA frag, that'll be the first on the male side. The second is homocysteine, which is essentially a byproduct of methylation gone wrong. So methylation is this process in the body. It is involved in a whole bunch of stuff, hormones, nutrients, all kinds of stuff.
Yep.
So if you're not methylating well because you have an epigenetic variant, or it's just not happening very well, or you're giving your body nutrients that are blocking that pathway from moving forward, then your body spits out a waste product that is essentially inflammatory, which is called homocysteine. And homocysteine is a marker that's usually in the cardio world. So you have a health issue, cardio doctors are like, yeah, we do homocysteine all day long. But in the fertility world, there are multiple studies now that show that hyperhomocysteinemia on the male side is going to cause recurrent pregnancy loss on the female.
Hold on. This is where you break out your highlighter in the notes that you're taking, people, as we are listening to this episode. Hyperhomocysteinemia. So elevated homocysteine levels. And what's really cool is, even though it's not standard in care, you can get these tests direct to the consumer on any one of those LabCorp, Quest Diagnostics, direct-to-consumer websites. It's a super cheap test, so you don't have to find someone who will agree to do the test. You can do this yourself. You can buy the test,
do it yourself.
Go to the lab, schedule yourself an appointment, and you can figure it out.
And the homocysteine is like $15.
Super cheap, $15.
Yeah.
Okay.
So $15 could save you like another loss. To me, that's like a no-brainer.
Worth it.
And then the last one on the male side is actually blood sugar. So high A1Cs, they've noticed like diabetic men, quote unquote,
Mm.
and they're referring to type 2 diabetes, they are more likely to have partners who have experienced losses. So, and there's something happening to the glycation of the sperm DNA, blah, blah, blah. Like we don't actually know what the exact correlation is, but we understand enough to know that this is a significant correlation that we can't keep ignoring,
Yeah, I mean,
right?
and we do
So,
understand at least that like overglycation of mitochondria in any
mhm,
cell creates excessive reactive oxygen species, which is going to damage DNA. And that
right.
could be the sort of pathway to damaged sperm or
Yes.
suboptimal sperm quality that
Yes.
could lead to this, a genetic issue that would result in a loss. So
Yeah.
yes, and that's true, by the
Oh,
way, not just for sperm. I would say that's also true on the egg side,
on the egg side.
for sure.
Yeah.
That's why
Because
blood sugar is the first step in hormonal health, which is the building block for optimal fertility.
mhm, yeah.
Uh, y-
And you have like the blood sugar on both sides, because the ovaries, eggs, and sperm have like 200 times the mitochondria of any other cell in the body.
yeah,
So the function of the mitochondria for fertility is like, what else are we going to talk about?
that's what we're going to
Because
talk about. Okay, so you write a lot about pretty cool supplements that people might not have heard about that could be useful from a fertility perspective, things like GLAs and other things. Any I'd love for you to just talk about some maybe supplements that obviously you can't out supplement a bad diet, so that goes without saying. But are there any things that you've seen in your clinical practice that are be really useful? Obviously, we know that you want to make this as personal as possible based on what's going on for you. But are there any universally beneficial supplements that, so that you're not adding a million things, but a couple of things that could be really helpful?
yeah. Uh, I feel like a foundational prenatal is probably wise because even with the best diet, we probably have
Hmm.
nutrient
Oh, yeah,
deficiencies.
for sure.
So that would probably be a good baseline.
Hmm.
I think omega-3s and probiotics are probably the three, between the three of those, that's kind of the core
Yeah.
of what every woman needs. Beyond that, a lot of it is personalized,
Yep.
but there are a whole host of antioxidants that are generally beneficial for egg and sperm health. So my favorites are acetyl-L-carnitine,
Hmm.
NAC, glutathione. I love green tea and goji berries, and I usually will tell people to make it as a tea. You don't need to go out and buy goji berry pills. Just like take a handful, put it in your soup, put it in your rice,
Mm.
cook with it, right? And then green tea, interestingly, as the level of caffeine in green tea goes down
Mm.
with each steep, the level of antioxidants is going up. So Asian cultures that used to re-steep their tea all day long, they had innate wisdom of, oh, we got to get all the antioxidants that this green tea can help us with.
So that's interesting because a lot of people love matcha, and
Mhm.
that's like you can't
The
re-steep
one
it.
time.
That's one and
Yeah.
done.
Yeah.
So where you're suggesting that we buy whole green tea leaves, and you can buy whole matcha tea leaves. People don't know that.
Mhm.
They think it only comes in a powdered form, but you can buy whole matcha premium grade, ceremonial grade green tea
Yeah.
leaves. And instead of grinding them up and making a
A powder with
latte,
milk and
you could
sugar.
also you could also do it. I mean, they're both beneficial, right? They're both
Yes.
beneficial, but if you want to use green tea in this way, that's from a antioxidant perspective, you can do it that
Mhm.
way.
Yeah.
Really
Yeah.
cool.
I love for people to get all of their antioxidants from the green tea that they're already drinking. So
Love that.
yeah. And if you don't like caffeine, throw away your first steep and then keep re-steeping it all day long.
Ooh, natural decaffeination? You mean I don't have to buy something caffeinated made with the chemicals and the decaffeination process?
Definitely do not buy decaf.
Right? Don't buy decaf.
Don't buy decaf anything.
Just steep it once, dump it out, and re-steep. So smart. Yeah. People do not know that. And I love that you just brought that up. Okay. Let's see. So many things. Let's talk about toxin exposure, please, because it keeps coming up as a root cause in fertility. What are the toxins that have the most impact on fertility? And without having to completely overhaul your life and live in a bubble, what are the, let's say, highest leverage changes that a woman could make to reduce this toxic burden from a fertility perspective?
Yeah. I think there are 3 that I pick on the most, and those are going to be plastics, BPA, BPS, BPF, and phthalates, which are all the things that smell great.
Yep. Fragrance, all your fragrance.
And glyphosate, which we insert right into our vaginas, which kills the entire microbiome of the reproductive system.
So you're talking about pesticides on, let's say, tampons or pads. Yeah, I think it's important. Do I wear all my clothes, organic cotton? And this is a great example of like, how do you do this without overwhelming yourself and making your life more difficult than it needs to be? The answer is I make strategic choices. So if I'm going to use a pad, it's 100%, not just the liner, not just the top, but the whole thing is 100% organic cotton if I'm going to use a pad. Otherwise, use a menstrual cup because it's silicone and then there's just no chemical exposure and that's easier. And then underwear and like cotton bras and cotton underwear should be organic for myself and my daughters, and pajamas because you're sleeping in them, you're sweating in them. So I try to make that a priority. Also, my workout clothes, I try to make those organic cotton. Obviously, they're going to have a little bit of spandex for stretch and performance, but those are the choices that I make. Everything else that I'm only in for a little bit of time, I don't make myself nuts about it. Fragrances, I agree. No fragrances, 0, none in my detergent, none in my dish soap or hand soap, or there's no home fragrance. I haven't found, if there was one that I could use, I would love to use a nice home fragrance. But right now, the only thing that I could use that is safe would be a steam diffuser with organic essential oils, right? So it's not like you have to give up having your house smell nice. You just can't use a plug-in or diffuser sticks. They're all phthalate based. I'm sorry to say, don't get seduced by the marketing to say it's like non-toxic. If it says the word fragrance and it has a little asterisk next to that word, it's phthalate based.
And I feel like there are companies now that are saying essential oil
derived.
Extract. Derived. And I'm like,
nope.
I don't know if I believe you.
That's a phthalate.
No.
It's just a hidden.
It's just like a way to disguise it and like not have us realize that, this is not actually natural. So if it smells good, I'm very suspicious. Basically, like if it has any fragrance whatsoever, I'm going to be like, all my tingly senses are going, gotta watch out for this.
Yeah. I mean, think about the chemicals that are needed to make. If you're buying laundry detergent that says your clothes will smell just like you washed them yesterday, but 10 days from now, what kind of serious chemical load is required for that to be true? It is not, a little bit of like organic lavender oil is not going to be present 10 days from the day of application. Not possible. So, you got to be thinking like, if it's too good to be true, that is. And then plastic exposure, again, you don't have to be scared, but be aware that they are finding traces of microplastics in follicular fluid. So when we are talking about fertility, this is not just let's do this because it's good for us. Dr. Simmons is really telling you these things because she knows from her treating 7,000 couples that have fertility challenges that these are the things that are big obstacles to optimal fertility. And so, you know, if you're going to make some changes, like, buy glass food storage containers that have
Yeah.
glass lids with silicone edging, right?
Either glass lids or wooden. Like there's a
Yep.
lot of bamboo lids.
Yep.
Those are
Bamboo
nice.
lids are good, but not
And
plastic lids.
like people ask me like, what do I do with all my containers that I already bought that have plastic lids? And I'm like, okay, don't freak out. It's okay.
Yeah.
Leave the lids off till the food is completely
Room temperature, cool. That's right. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Then put it in the fridge.
Yep.
Right. So leave it open, leave it out,
Yep.
let it cool down.
Yep.
You're okay.
You're okay.
And definitely don't put the lids in the microwave. So don't have it near your food while it's hot.
There
basically.
you go. See, you don't have to be crazy. You just have to be thoughtful about what you're exposed to. I think that's really important.
And then I think all the cookware that is laden with the coatings, the nonstick coatings, I feel like every day there's a new ad about it's non-toxic. And I'm like, yeah, that's not non-toxic. You're taking out one, but putting in 3 more. Thank you.
I mean, I only have stainless steel cookware.
Stainless steel, cast iron.
I'm not so savvy about cooking with cast iron because, you got to like cook with it right and clean it right. And it's heavy, especially the larger pans are very heavy. Yeah. So I have a small one that I use to just make eggs in, but I appreciate that it can feel a little overwhelming to do cast iron. But, I cook everything in either enameled, so we're talking like Le Creuset kind of, ceramic, cast iron that creates a natural nonstick, or stainless steel. That's it.
Yep.
And there's no microwave in my house. I heat everything up on the stove that I want to warm up in my little stainless steel with a little water. I just steam cook it. Like, you know what I'm saying? Old school. That's it. You can do it. You can learn this skill. You don't need to heat things up in a microwave. I promise. I've lived my entire life without a microwave. Truly, you don't need one.
Oh goodness, yes.
Those are really helpful suggestions. For women who aren't actively trying to conceive right now, but want to protect fertility long term, whether for a future pregnancy or just their overall hormonal health, what would you suggest that they focus on?
I think the first is don't ignore your body. Sounds super basic, but if your body is saying you have period pain, you have migraines, you have a bloated feeling, your cycles are short or they're irregular, like your body is giving you this report card every single month. So stop ignoring it and stop like acting like, oh, my doctor said it's normal. Yes, they don't know any better. It's okay. Like, it's not normal. No symptoms in your period during your cycle is normal.
Yeah.
Period.
Thank you for saying that. And just to put some parentheses around that, like it was only in 2016 that the American College of Obstetrics and Gynecologists decreed that your cycle should now be considered a fifth vital sign. So it takes a long time for something like that to happen, to trickle down into standard clinical protocols. And so you have to know that this is a vital sign, and then you as a person just have to advocate for that. So what you're saying is so important. If you see something that's going on in your cycle in your 20s, 30s, and you're not yet thinking about fertility, but you want it to be there for you when you're ready, that's a sign from your body to act. And take action, and that's obviously everything that I've been talking about for a long time. And so I just love that this is a more common conversation. We shouldn't ignore our periods anymore, and I love that you talk about that.
I met some young college age women recently, and they were like, oh, we love what you do because you're talking about all this stuff, and like, we don't take birth control, and they're just so excited, right? There's like, we're not taking birth control anymore because da 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 da, and they had all of these reasons, and I was like, yeah, Heck yeah.
Yeah, it's
Like,
good.
this is
The
where
narrative is shifting, and I have a
it's
lot of hope
shifting.
for the
And
future because, I mean, that's the whole purpose of this show. Why did I start this show? Because with education and information, we
mm,
have the right perspective to make better choices for our own personal hormonal care and other rocks to look under, other stones to turn over. And once you see what's under there, there's
mhm.
work to be done and everything can be addressed. So I
Yeah.
think it's just so great what you're doing, and I'm so glad that you came on to talk to us about it today. I have a few rapid fire questions as we
Okay.
wrap up.
Okay.
Okay,
Hit
let's fast, like just your gut answer.
me.
One test every woman should ask her doctor for that she's probably never heard of or not being told she should get.
Thyroid antibodies.
I think
I
that's
think
that's a
it's
big takeaway from today for sure. One habit that's probably hurting fertility that no one talks about.
improper or insufficient hydration.
I mean, nobody's talking about that, but yeah, the stress from dehydration, there's new studies
Yeah.
about that. I wrote about them last year. Like, it's not just that it adds stress, it's like making your response to stress worse. It's terrible. Hydration, hydration, hydration. Okay. The,
That simple.
the best fertility biohack that costs nothing.
We talked about it at length. Sleep. Like, hands down, sleep.
Double down on your sleep hygiene, people. It's gonna be a big, big ROI.
Oh, and if I were to add like a flip to that,
Mm,
like the morning sunlight is really amazing to help regulate your circadian rhythm for the daytime.
yes, your ovaries are circadian in terms of like sensitivity to light. So I could not agree with you more. Okay. Most underrated thing a woman can do for her egg quality.
I mean, besides sleep. Let's see. I would say probably the complex carbohydrates, actually, because that's going to support the production of progesterone, which is essentially reflecting egg quality. So, yeah, eat
Eat.
the complex
Eat the
carbs.
carbs. Yep. Okay. What
Mhm.
does biohacking like a woman mean to you?
For me, that's basically incorporating everything that's happening at different points in our cycle in our day-to-day life.
Love it. One thing you wish you'd known about your hormones in your 20s.
I mean, besides everything that I know now, I swear, like from 14 to 33, my body, my periods, my hormones, literally all of it was on a decline, except for maybe the 1 year that I spent living in a monastery in silence. That
Mm.
was the 1 year that maybe things were better. But outside of that, it was like, you're a hormone doctor? How? But it was the wake up call was at 33 when I was like, oh my God, like I've been ignoring this for the entire time. I've had symptoms every single month for 2 decades. That's not a good thing.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I wish I had known all of this very early in life. I was taught to ignore, to suppress, to move past it. It was just part of being a woman.
Yeah.
And if I had known then what I know now, I'd have been like, yeah, this is not normal. And it is so easy to fix. It was basically like cut out the dairy, eat better, sleep better, stop stressing out. But all of those patterns were learned so early in my life.
Yeah.
And it took me 2 decades to finally get it. And now that I know it, I'm sorry, I'm not going back.
I
That
know.
will not be
In a way,
happening.
it was such a huge struggle for me being a teen with, no period and all the issues I had around my
Mhm.
PMOS, but it was a gift to have been forced at 20 to start making all these changes.
Yeah.
Because the ROI now at 49, still cycling, not having any symptoms, being
Mhm.
able to have
Yeah.
2 geriatric pregnancies, like, playing the long game with taking care of your cycle health is invaluable. And yeah, I could not agree more with you that I think, wouldn't it be amazing if girls at 14 just knew that that was what they were
Yeah.
supposed to do instead of waiting until there was a crisis from a fertility
Yeah.
perspective when, then that's not when you want to have to wait to have the baby. You want to put all
Mhm.
that work in earlier so that you can have what you want sooner. So I think that's a really powerful story that you shared. If you know somebody who is going through fertility challenges, or if it's part of your community right now, you're all talking about having another baby, please forward this episode, share this episode. This is game-changing information. Thank you, Dr. Aumatma, for being here and talking to us about this today. It was such a joy to talk to you. I'm sure we're going to have you back on because we could talk for 7 days and we still have many things to discuss. So
we just like hanging out together.
Yes, obviously. And how can people find you to get more resources? What's a website they can look at? What's a social that they can go to? We'll put everything in the show notes, but where can they go?
Awesome. Yeah. So at Holistic Fertility Doctor on Instagram, feel free to message me. I'm pretty alive in there.
Mm-hmm.
And then the reference that I mentioned as far as being able to assess what's happening with your fertility and why you're not getting pregnant, and let's get to the root of it, that assessment is available at madrefertility.com.
Cool. Very cool. Please like, comment, and subscribe to the Ovary Club on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Let me know if you like this episode, what other questions you have. It helps not only me curate the next episodes for you to get you the information, the education you need to be empowered to take care of your ovaries and live your best life as a woman, but it also helps other women find the show and help them, get the same information because, we're all connected as women through our ovarian ecosystem. And I think together by sharing knowledge is how we're going to really shift the narrative and move the needle in women's care. So do it because it's the right thing to do, right? Sharing is caring. And I'm really so grateful that you all tuned in today. And I will see you next time on the next episode. Thank you again, Dr. Aumatma, and everybody take good care.